Welcome everybody to this Audit Risk Subcommittee meeting, the last one of the triennium. Let's just start with a karakia. Tuia ki ranga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki wako, tuia ki te hea tangata. Ka rongo te po, ka rongo te ao, honi e hui e. Unite above, unite below, unite without, unite within. Unite as one, listen to the night, listen to the world of light. Now we come together. Okay, so just before we start this meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge Andrew Douglas. Andrew's been the co-chair of Audit and Risk for now 2 trienniums, Andrew. From my point of view, I have really appreciated your professional advice and your leadership in this area, being proactive on a number of fronts. And it has been an easier job to have you as a co-chair. So thank you very much from me and from the council as well for the work that you've done for us. And I think that you had a career in this, and you'll probably be surfacing again at some stage in local government. So thank you very much, and all the best for your next gig. Yes. Excellent. Okay, apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Lateness from Kevin.
Lateness for Kevin, so he's likely to come in at some stage. We've got, who's online? Just Amanda. Yep. So welcome, Amanda. Okay, we have no public forum. We do.
Yes.
Oh yes, okay. Let's. You like to move?
I'll move. Yeah.
Kate's moved. Apology for lateness for Kevin. Someone to second, please. Thank you, Gary. All those in favour?
Right.
Yes. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We do have. We will be moving out of public and into non-public immediately after our first item on the agenda today, to facilitate the auditors. So that is the only change to the agenda.
Happy to move the agenda change.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Andrew, thank you. All in favour?
No.
Against? It's carried. Thank you. Just a reminder around declaration of interests for councillors. And we'll just look at the minutes from the last Audit Risk Subcommittee meeting that was held on the 4th of June. If there's any changes or anything that's out of order there, please let us know. Otherwise, I move that they be accepted. Second, Kate. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Okay. We have open actions from the resolutions. What have we got here? Okay, yep, so that's good. Okay, so just like to invite Tom Dyer up for his paper on asset management, internal audit update.
Yes.
So this paper report provides an update to the Audit Risk Subcommittee on the process to improve asset management practice at the Regional Council. It was in response to the asset management practice audit, which was carried out by the Rationale at the company in late 2024. So Tom, over to you.
Kia ora, and thank you for having us today. So on my right, Pam Wilson. Pam works in our engineering team and has been responsible for leading some of the work in front of you today. Just as a quick intro to the paper and the reason for it. So we brought we undertook an audit last year, commissioned Rationale, a consultancy that specialises in infrastructure asset management, among a number of other things. We brought that audit back to the committee late last year. Off the back of that, the intent was to pick up and start to deliver asset management improvement plans across the areas of the business that required it. We've completed the first one in engineering. The others are still to come. But what I wanted to do was just bring that back and present it to the committee, show what a product looked like out of that piece of work. It's obviously just an improvement plan. Has a series of items that need to be undertaken to lift our performance over time, but does give you a clear insight into what we intend to do and how we intend to do it. But with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
Okay, we'll open the floor for questions. Please.
Fascinating report, thank you. Fascinating report, thank you very much. Really good at reading. The question I have is, where does this align with finances and being able to do all of those tasks budget-wise in the long-term plan? And how much of it is reliant on potentially needing more money? Because there's quite a lot of work there, but it's a fabulous read.
So the current plan is funded under current budget. So the plan to improve our asset management practice is funded. Any decisions around infrastructure investment or anything like that came out of this work in time may or may not be funded depending on the project. And if that was the case, if a change were required, we'd bring that back to a long-term plan, preferably, or if urgent, an annual plan.
And if I may, and just finishing box for me, which I don't think I saw, but I may have, in the process of that, if it need more, what would the role of either liaison groups or community engagement be in understanding that? And will the stuff be public?
Yeah, so decisions around investment or renewals or whatever might be required. The team will work through in a structured way in line with what you see in the asset management improvement plan, or in line with the international standard we try to adhere to. But those decisions will always be subject to feedback through a number of mechanisms. So, for instance, if we were planning to undertake work that had an impact or was in close proximity to a property, we'd talk to the property owner. But any kind of scheme level work or any work on a scheme that has a liaison group, that they would see that as well as just a matter of course. And their feedback would be taken into account as we were developing long-term plans, that sort of thing.
Right. Thank you.
Tom, I just have a question that's based on the rationale memo, which is on page 47 of the diligent report. And it was around that they priority improvement areas. They identified the asset management information system as the first priority improvement area. And it just reads, RSC's current AMIS conquest is not actively used by the infrastructure engineering team and lacks core functionality. This review and a decision of whether to enhance conquest or replace it with a fit for purpose system is critical enabler to integrated asset planning, reporting and decision making. But I see that also on page 19, under your exclusions, you've got this improvement plan does not address the task of procuring and implementing a new or updated asset management information system. So I was just wondering, so it's been recommended and highly prioritised, and you're excluding it.
Yeah, so excluding it from this piece of work. So this piece of work is an internal document, right? It's not something we would normally bring to committee. It's a team-focused document that they'll use for business planning and all those types of practices. That means that the exclusions can seem quite extreme if you're reading it from a committee's perspective, but we're only sharing this because it was of interest and related to a previous audit. That exclusion is about Pam's team, excluding that piece of work from their scope of influence. That's a piece of work that would be undertaken led by our IT team and managed through that process. Now, we're currently getting the planning for that project underway as well. So it's not to say it's not going to happen or not going to be undertaken, but just not under the specific improvement plan.
So I'll just add to that. There was a project to update ORC's current asset management system, and it was effectively put on hold because the system wasn't delivering what our asset owning teams required. It was more for financial purposes. So that project's on hold to allow this sort of work to occur. So we actually know what our asset owning teams require out of an asset management system more than just the financial requirements. There is money within the IT budget to deliver that asset management system, and this information, along with the other work being done by environmental monitoring and IT and support services, will feed into that. So we are aware that it's something that we need to do, but as Tom said, not to be done independently by engineering outside of our other asset owning teams.
So if you're not using a information system around the asset management, how are you doing it?
So we use a combination of things like GIS. We still do reference Conquest, quite a lot actually. But through this plan, we'll move into a slightly more integrated system, probably with GIS in the interim, while we catch up on getting our data actually up to scratch. And we're quite comfortable with that plan, yeah, based on the scale of our assets.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Ellen.
Yeah, thanks. On page 48 of diligent there, there's a bit under resourcing constraints delivering the plan likely to exceed the current capacity of the infrastructure team. You may already have answered that in response to Kate's question. I'm just checking if I've got that right. Yeah,
so that relates to the current resourcing of Pam's team, which is a grand total of 2. But I would expect that resourcing will increase quite quickly soon, and we've got a plan in place to deliver.
Right, and is
under
that
the existing under our existing FTE allocations?
right?
Yep. Andrew.
And I guess if we're getting near the end of the questions on this, I'm just thinking, it's a great update and to see what progress has been made. And as you've sort of said, this is a plan for improvement, and it's actually the delivery of the plan, which is going to be the tough piece. So my question is, are we going to continue to monitor this from this committee? Because we've had this on our action register for a while, which has been good, and it is extremely important in terms of the delivery of the plan, and it's going to have some big questions asked. Which I'm sure will go to other committees like finance as well. But there are sort of a number of strands. So just sort of asking what's going to happen to it from here.
So we haven't proposed to continue any regular updates to the committee. Obviously subject to feedback and the enthusiasm of the committee. But we intend to take on this work, and while I agree it presents some challenges, certainly well within the capability of the team, and looking at what they've got in front of them at the moment. So yeah, definitely achievable.
I think this one will remain on our, I would suspect asset management will remain on our critical risks anyway. It's a known risk for regional councils managing flood infrastructure, and it will remain probably the key risk, along with some others around our people. So through our regular updates on risk that will continue to come to this committee, I would expect to see under updates for that risk that the actions identified through this process have continued to be actioned by the team.
Yeah.
And then if the committee feels that there needs to be a more fulsome report down the track, we can always accommodate that. But I think the sort of regular reporting could be picked up through critical risk updates.
Okay. Yep, that sounds reasonable. And yeah, just a reminder, this was sort of one of the first, possibly the first internal audit. And so there will be more and tracking of more actions as well. Coming out the next two. Last question, fleet and IT were also part of it, outside energy. So just, is that going to be updated at the committee at some point?
Could be. The intent is to deliver similar improvement plans, probably not to the same scale. Engineering of a more significant financial risk, and so put a lot of energy into improvement planning. You might not see such comprehensive improvement plans from those other groups, but they are intending to pick those up in the next little while. And sorry, in this financial year, whether or not they get reported back to the committee, I hadn't considered. But obviously open to that subject to feedback.
I guess just a bit of a risk sitting there that how long ago the initial review was done. Just an update on their progress or their plan. But if you're comfortable that it can be handled internally, otherwise there is a risk that just sits there and doesn't get actioned.
I think we're certainly comfortable that the most significant risks out of the asset management review are being addressed through this piece of work. There were certainly some things identified that were of a smaller scale and probably a smaller risk in terms of the way we manage some of our smaller kit. But yeah, point taken in terms of wrapping up the entire review with a report back. We could pick that up in with the next committee and just close the loop on that one.
Yeah, really good reading. Just a couple of questions on which is on page 20, which is the task H, I, J, and K in that area there. So my first question was going to be what's been happening in the last 5 years, but clearly you've been doing plenty to make sure things are being done. But what it says there, we're preparing a master inspection program, and then we're working on upgrading things and doing things better and better. But so from our current information that we have, what flood and drainage assets are not performing to the design standard, and what is our liability with those positions that they're in? And if that's probably a bit tough to throw that to you straight now, but I mean, at the end of this, that's what I'm really looking for, is if we've got a system in place, does that show it to me and what's my liability at the end? So how do I find that, and where do I find that?
You're right, it's a tough one to throw at the what the intent would be, that we end up in a space where we can comprehensively answer that question without too much trouble. But a lot of the projects that are DC listed here contribute to pulling together that fulsome picture. So, for instance, if you don't have a sound data structure with comprehensive coverage in terms of information as your underpinning foundation, you can ask that question, but you'll get a bad number or an error as a result. The intent is that as we work through this plan, that we build that foundation and then are able to answer those questions with a straight face and a lot of confidence.
Right.
I think the other thing too, Kim, we can't sit here and say we have no liability. We can say that we have put ourselves in a position where we're comfortable, we can do everything we can to reduce our risk. Obviously, other people in the event of an incident may have a different opinion and choose to take a case. So this process is about satisfying this table that we're doing everything we can to ensure that there is no liability should, but we couldn't sit here and say there is none. So it's only a very slight differentiation, but it is it's quite. I have to be quite careful. My advice would never be we have none. It would be we are satisfied that our processes are put us in a position that should there be an issue, we are less likely to be found liable. But that's a work in progress, and certainly I think why this was chosen as the first internal audit topic, because it is where we carry a lot of risk.
Absolutely. So I suppose that's why the residual of not having this really robust system in place, the residual is there are possibly some areas that we have possibly more than acceptable risk to this table,
And so that's probably what I'm trying to, are there any areas that you have identified that need to be brought to our attention, or you would perhaps like at another date to bring to our attention?
I think the short answer is not today, but
Yeah.
but in time, I'm sure we will get to a place where we are highlighting risks or liabilities that are new to the table or are new, and that this process is about discovery and about ensuring that, like I said before, that the information set is comprehensive.
Yeah.
And as we do that, we'll certainly come back as required.
Thank you.
So I just had a couple of other questions, and it came from item 9, or the risk thing. This asset management plan, or this plan, is this a nationally accepted, and is it something that we're doing, that all regional councils are now sort of setting up this way?
Yes, the sector is certainly working towards having improvement plans. So there's a call out at the moment for all regional councils to supply this information. And we have a sector-wide group, so all of the asset managers across the regional councils get together quite regularly. And we have a meeting coming up in November, which I'm sure this will be on the agenda.
Yeah, and so broadly speaking, some of the highlights that come out of that group are that alignment to ISO 55000 that we used as a standard operating method is the preferred, or I think guiding star was the words in the last document I saw, but the preferred approach to dealing with this sort of stuff nationally and a consistent framework. And so yeah, we've headed off down that path, and a lot of cases you're probably a little bit ahead of the curve now.
So, and the reason is because in their item it highlights exactly Ellen's point about the number of staff required, and it says down from 4, so we've lost some staff, and I'm wondering whether it's, and then you talk about mitigating it with, I think, contractors. Oh, well, that's what I read it, that doesn't quite say that, and I'm just wondering if it's something that industry-wide we can be doing collectively, that is not a part of a job for the or shared services, and
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah. So there is some work being done at the moment across the regional and unitary councils that have involvement in this area, which is pretty much good. Looking at, first of all, consistent process, because without consistent process, then very difficult to run, a shared services model, whatever that might look like. And then looking at the opportunities where resources could be shared or expertise could be shared across councils to provide efficiencies, but also ensure that the standards are maintained at a consistent level right across the country. So that's work that Pam is heavily involved in at sector level, and that's work that I sit on the group that are of CEs that are currently looking at opportunities for councils. We don't want to jump straight to the shared services title because that comes with connotations, but if we just talk about opportunities for council to work much more closely together to be more efficient and get consistently good outcomes, and we see flood and drainage and asset management as a priority area for that.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that, because it's a fairly niche industry, not necessarily suitable to contracting, but having shared resources and ability to get an idea of how it is. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, if we've got no further questions, then this is a noting recommendation. So can I have a mover and a second to note the report, please? Kate, thank you. Kevin, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. It's at the point that we are going to go into the public disclosure. So yeah, okay. I'll read this out. Okay, so that the public be excluded from the following items under Lagoina 48(1)A, confirmation of the minutes of the confidential audit and risk subcommittee meeting of the 4th of June 2025. We're going to cover the annual report 24/25 and audit report, the managed fund report, insurance renewals, insurance disclosures. And I also move that Anthony Smith and Dan Ash from Deloitte are permitted to remain at this meeting after the public has been excluded because of their knowledge of the ORC audit plan. This knowledge, which will be of assistance in relation to the matter to be discussed and relevant to that matter because of the expertise of that matter. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Kate, thank you. Yes, Andrew, seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's carried. Thank you. Just need to